You are born on May 3rd, 1469. You don't choose the city, you don't choose the family, you don't choose the era. But you open your eyes in Florence, and Florence in 1469 is not a quiet place to be born. Church bells rule every hour of every day. They tell you when to wake up, when to pray, when the government has an announcement, when someone important has died. The streets below your window smell like horses, smoke, and fresh bread baking before sunrise. Merchants argue in the piazzas. Artists carry marble dust on their boots. And somewhere, in a palace not far from your house, a man named Lorenzo de' Medici runs everything. The banks, the government, the art, the silence. You grow up understanding one thing very clearly. Power in Florence is never where people say it is. It's not in the law. It's not in the church. It's in the room behind the room, in the favor given and the favor owed, in the smile that means yes and the silence that means you're already finished. Your father, Bernardo, is a lawyer, not a wealthy one. He struggles with debt his entire life, but he has something that matters more than money. He has books, Roman histories, Latin texts, the great thinkers of the ancient world, and he lets you read all of them. So while other boys your age are learning trades, you are reading about Julius Caesar, about Hannibal, about republics that rose and fell. You are absorbing something that will take you decades to fully understand. That history is not just the past, it is a manual. The Medici have ruled Florence for as long as you can remember. Lorenzo is brilliant, a poet, a patron, a politician who understands that beauty and power are the same weapon in different hands. He keeps Florence rich and keeps Florence's enemies distracted. You watch him, you study him. You are 15, 16, 17 years old, and already you understand that this man rules not through force, but through perception. People believe he is indispensable, and so he is. But then, when you are 23, something cracks. A family called the Pazzi tried to assassinate Lorenzo years earlier, failed, and paid for it with their lives. Now the threats come from outside, from kings, from armies, from France. And in 1492, Lorenzo the Magnificent dies. Just like that, the man who held it all together is gone. You feel it in the streets. Everyone does. Florence without Lorenzo is a ship without a captain in a storm that is already starting. 2 years later, the storm arrives in person. Charles VIII of France invades Italy with an army so large it darkens the roads. The Medici, who have held power for 60 years, panic and flee. And into the vacuum left by their exit walks the strangest possible figure. A Dominican friar named Girolamo Savonarola, who looks at Florence and decides that God is angry, that the art is sinful, that the books are sinful, that the mirrors, the fine clothes, the beautiful paintings, all of it must burn. You are 25 years old, watching a city you love turn itself inside out. Savonarola lights bonfires in the piazzas and throws paintings and books into the flames. He calls them bonfires of the vanities. The people cheer, not all of them, but enough. Enough to let him rule for 4 years. Enough to make Florence, the most sophisticated city in Europe, look like a theocracy run by fear. You watch all of this, and you feel something harden inside you. Not cynicism exactly, more like clarity. You're watching what happens when people follow feeling instead of reason. When they choose the comfort of certainty over the difficulty of truth. Savonarola promises heaven and delivers chaos. And eventually, Florence has enough. In 1498,
The artifact
the
must
city
be
turns
moved
on
before
him.
morning.
He is arrested. They torture him. And unlike you, years later, he breaks. He confesses. They hang him in the same piazza where he had lit his bonfires, and then they set his body on fire. The crowd watches. You watch, and you understand something that will sit in the back of your mind for the rest of your life. It is far more dangerous to promise salvation than to promise order. With Savonarola gone, the Republic reorganizes itself. A new chief minister takes power, Piero Soderini, a steady, cautious, decent man. Not brilliant, but honest. And he needs people around him who can think. You are 29 years old. You have no army, no fortune, no famous last name. You have only your mind. And your mind, it turns out, is exactly what Florence needs right now. In 1498, you are appointed second chancellor of the Florentine Republic. It is the most important administrative position in foreign affairs. You will represent Florence to kings, popes, cardinals, and warlords. You will negotiate, observe, report, and advise. For the next 14 years, this city is yours to serve, and you serve it with everything you have. The work is relentless. You travel constantly to France, to Rome, to the courts of men who could erase Florence from the map with a single order. You learn to read a room before you say a single word. You learn that the most powerful people in the world are afraid of the same things everyone else is afraid of losing what they have, of being humiliated, of being forgotten. Fear and ambition. That is all politics is, you begin to understand. Every treaty, every war, every alliance, fear and ambition. Dressed up in formal language, you watch Florence make a decision you hate. Instead of building its own army, the Republic relies on mercenaries, hired soldiers who fight for whoever pays most. You see them in action, and you see the problem immediately. Men who fight for money will stop fighting the moment the money runs out, or the moment the enemy offers them more. They have no loyalty to Florence. They have no reason to die for Florence. They are, you write in your reports, useless in real danger. You propose a radical idea, a citizen militia. Florentine men, trained and armed, fighting for their own city. It takes years of arguing, but in 1506, Soderini finally approves it. You organize it yourself. It is your proudest achievement as an official. A republic you believe with everything in you must be defended by citizens who have something to lose, not by hired strangers who feel nothing for the land beneath their feet. But before that, in 1502, you receive an assignment that will change you permanently. Florence is afraid of Cesare Borgia. Cesare is the son of Pope Alexander VI, and in a few short years, he has conquered most of central Italy through a combination of military genius, extraordinary cruelty, and psychological manipulation so refined it borders on art. He dresses in black. He wears a mask in public because his face has been disfigured by syphilis. He smiles at his enemies and invites them to dinner and has them killed over dessert. He is, by any normal moral standard, a monster. Florence needs to know his intentions, and so they send you. You arrive at Borgia's court in October 1502. You are 33 years old, a bureaucrat from a city of merchants, sitting across the table from the most dangerous man in Italy. And what you feel is not fear, it is fascination. Because Cesare Borgia does something that no one else you have ever met does. He acts. While other leaders debate and delay and negotiate and hedge, Borgia decides and moves. He wastes no time on sentiment, no energy on appearances. He sees a problem and he solves it completely, even if the solution requires him to do things that would make a priest faint. You watch him that autumn as his own generals, men who served him loyally, begin to fear him and plot against him. They meet in secret. They conspire. They decide to rebel. And then, trembling, they go to Borgia and confess their disloyalty and beg his forgiveness. He forgives them. He smiles. He invites them to a celebratory dinner in the city of Senegalia to seal the reconciliation. It is December 31st, 1502. New Year's Eve, they walk into the city, they walk into the building, they sit down at the table. And at a signal from Cesare, a single quiet signal, armed men fill the room. The guests are seized. The doors close. That night, 2 of them are strangled. The others will be dead within weeks. You are not in the room, but you are close enough. You write a letter back to Florence that same night. You report what has happened. And then you add a single line, cold and precise. In my opinion, they will not be alive tomorrow morning. You are right. And something about being right, about reading that situation so perfectly, stays with you. You spend months at Borgia's side. You write dispatches home describing every move he makes, every calculation, every decision. You are watching a man govern the way a surgeon operates, without hesitation, without apology, with total focus on the outcome. The method is brutal, but the result is order. Cesare's territories are stable. His people, even the ones who fear him, know what to expect. There are no surprises. There is no chaos. You go back to Florence carrying a question you cannot answer yet. Is it possible to be effective without being cruel? Or is cruelty the right kind, the precise kind, the kind that ends quickly and doesn't linger? Is that just another word for decisiveness? You will spend the rest of your life turning that question over. Back in Florence, the years pass. You negotiate, you travel. You watch your country make the same mistakes over and over, trusting mercenaries, appeasing enemies, choosing short-term peace over long-term strength. You argue, you write reports, you build the militia. You love this city with an intensity that embarrasses you sometimes, because it is not a love that asks for anything in return. And then, in 1512, it all ends. A Spanish army, fighting on behalf of the papacy, marches toward Florence. Your citizen militia, your proud creation, your great experiment, meets them at the town of Prato. And the militia breaks. They are not cowards. They are simply not soldiers. They were farmers and craftsmen 3 years ago. The Spanish troops are professionals. The battle lasts a few hours. Prato is sacked. The message to Florence is clear. Soderini is deposed. The Medici return. And on November 7th, 1512, a decree is issued. Your name is on it. You are removed from all positions in the Florentine government. You are dismissed. You are forbidden from entering the Palazzo Vecchio. Everything you built over 14 years, gone in a single afternoon. You try to adapt. You write to the Medici. You offer your services. You tell them everything you know, everything you have seen, everything you can do. You have more experience in foreign affairs than almost anyone alive. Surely that is worth something. Surely someone will see that. Nobody answers. And then, in February 1513, soldiers come to your door. Your name has appeared on a list. A group of young men were plotting to overthrow the Medici. Someone wrote down names of people who might sympathize with the cause. Your name is on that list. You did not write it. You did not join the conspiracy. You did not even know it existed. But your name is on the list, and that is enough. They take you to the Bargello prison. It is a cold building in the center of Florence. The walls are stone. There is no window in the room where they take you. They use the strappato. Your arms are tied behind your back. A rope is attached to your bound wrists. They hoist you up, high, off the ground, and then they drop you. The rope snaps taut before you hit the floor. The sudden stop tears at your shoulders, your arms, your joints. They do this 6 times, 6 drops. Your shoulders dislocate. The pain is a specific, precise kind of agony. It is not the pain of an accident or a wound. It is the pain of something being deliberately done to you by people who know exactly what they are doing and feel nothing about it. They ask you to confess, to name names, to confirm what they already believe. You say nothing because there is nothing to say. You were not part of the conspiracy. And even if you are a man who has spent 14 years watching how power works. You know that a confession is not salvation. A confession is just the beginning of something worse. They find no evidence because there is none. And in March 15 and 13, something saves you. Not justice, not truth, but luck. A Medici cardinal is elected Pope Leo XI. In celebration, a general amnesty is declared for political prisoners. You are released. You walk out of the Bargello into the cold Florentine spring. Your shoulders still hurt. You have no job. You have no money beyond what the family farm outside the city can produce. You are 43 years old and the life you built is rubble. You go to your small house in Sant'Andrea in Percusina. It is a few miles outside Florence, close enough to see the city on a clear day, far enough that you might as well be on the moon. You trap birds in September. You argue with woodcutters about firewood. You play cards and backgammon at the local inn with the innkeeper and the village butcher. These are your companions now. These are the men who share your evenings. You tell a friend in a letter that you are rotting, that you are ill, not physically, but in every other way, because you are cut off from the city you love more than your own soul. You write it exactly like that. More than my own soul. And you are not exaggerating. But then something strange happens, because exile gives you something that 14 years of urgent, exhausting, relentless work never gave you. Time to think. Real time. Uninterrupted time. Time to sit with everything you saw, everything you learned, everyone you met. Lorenzo, Savonarola, Soderini, Cesare Borgia, the popes and the kings and the mercenaries and the cowards, and to ask the question that has been forming inside you since the beginning. What is power, actually? Not what people say it is. Not what the church says it is. Not what the philosophers say it is. What is it really? How does it work? How do you get it? How do you keep it? How do you lose it? Every evening, you do something that becomes a ritual. You come in from the fields, dirty and tired and smelling of the farm, and before you sit down to write, you change your clothes. You put on your best garments, the ones you would wear to a meeting with a minister, with a cardinal, with a duke. You dress as if you are about to enter a palace, and then you sit down at your desk, alone in your study, and you open your books, and you write. You are in conversation with the dead, with Livy and Tacitus and Caesar and all the Romans who understood what it actually takes to build something that lasts. You ask them questions and they answer through their histories. For 4 hours every night, you are not a disgraced bureaucrat in a farmhouse. You are back in the room where things happen. By December of 1513, you have finished a small book. You call it De Principatibus, on principalities. You later dedicate it to Lorenzo de' Medici, the grandson of the man you watched rule Florence as a boy. You are dedicating it to the family that tortured you and destroyed your career, not because you love them, because you are trying desperately to get back into the room, to be useful again, to matter again. The book is unlike anything anyone has ever written about politics. Every book on governance before yours says the same thing. Be virtuous, be pious, be just, and good outcomes will follow. Your book says something different. Your book says, look at what actually happens, not what should happen, not what the church says happens, not what the philosophers wish would happen. What actually, historically, demonstrably happens when leaders make choices. And what actually happens is this: the leader who tells the truth loses to the leader who lies convincingly. The prince who shows mercy to enemies who are still dangerous gets destroyed by those same enemies. The city that refuses to be feared is taken over by the city willing to inspire fear. These are not opinions. These are observations. You have watched them happen personally, in country after country, court after court, for 2 decades. You write it all down. Simply, clearly, in Italian, not in Latin, because you want people to actually read it, not just scholars. You write the book you wish someone had given you at 25. The book that would have told you how the world actually works before the world spent 14 years showing you the hard way. You send it to Lorenzo. Lorenzo barely glances at it. He receives it, sets it aside, and goes back to his greyhounds and his hunting. The man for whom you poured your entire experience into one small, explosive book can't be bothered to read it. The years that follow are quieter. You write more, plays, poems, histories. You are commissioned to write an official history of Florence, which finally brings you back into limited contact with the Medici and with the city you love. You spend hours in literary circles talking about poetry and philosophy with young intellectuals who admire you. It is not the life you wanted, but it is a life. In 1527, the world cracks open one more time. Rome is sacked by the army of Emperor Charles V, a catastrophe so violent and total that it shocks all of Europe. In the chaos that follows, the Medici are driven out of Florence again. The Republic is restored. This is the moment you have been waiting for. You rush back to the city, certain that your old position will be returned to you. You served the Republic faithfully for 14 years. Who else has your experience? Who else has your knowledge? But the new Republicans don't trust you. You spent the last several years working for the Medici, writing their history, accepting their commissions, trying to stay close to power. To them, you are a collaborator, a man who served both sides and can therefore be trusted by neither. You are rejected again. By the other side this time, you die on June 21st, 1527. You are 58 years old. Your body is buried in Santa Croce, the same church you were near the end of your life, forbidden from entering. The irony of Florence, to be buried in the church they banned you from. The Prince is published 5 years after your death, in 1532. By 1550, It has been printed 7 times in Italian alone. Within decades, it is translated into every major European language. Rulers read it in secret. Popes condemn it. In 1559, it is placed on the index of prohibited books by the Catholic Church, which means the Catholic Church spent considerable energy trying to stop people from reading it, which means people spent considerable energy trying to find it. Your name becomes a word, Machiavellian. It is used as an insult for centuries, attached to politicians and schemers and anyone willing to do what needs to be done without apologizing for it. They mean it as an accusation. They point at someone and say, that person is Machiavellian, cunning, ruthless, willing to use cruel means to reach their ends. Here is what they don't say. The person they are describing is usually winning. Here is what they also don't say. You were not a cynical man. You were a heartbroken one. You loved Florence so completely, so irrationally, more than your soul, your own words, that you spent your entire life trying to give it tools to survive in a world that was trying to eat it. You watched republic after republic collapse because its leaders refused to see reality as it was. You watched good men fail because they were good in the wrong way, gentle when they needed to be firm, trusting when they needed to be suspicious, idealistic at exactly the moment when pragmatism could have saved everything. You wrote the most controversial book in the history of politics not because you were cruel, but because you were honest. And in a world full of advice telling rulers to be virtuous and pray and everything would work out, you were the only one willing to say, here is what actually works. Here is what actually happens. Here is the truth, unvarnished, uncomfortable, and completely real. 500 years later, that book is still in print, still taught in universities, still read by presidents and executives, and anyone trying to understand why the world works the way it does and not the way we wish it did. They called you cruel. Maybe they were just afraid of what you knew.